Hello, and welcome to this edition of People in Transition. I'm your host, Bob Gerst. I've been hiring, firing, and mentoring executives, frontline employees, interns, and job seekers in companies around the world through a host of transitions, some difficult, but most very good. I work with people in Hong Kong, India, Australia, and across the United States. What sets them apart? A lot, but there's more they have in common. And one of those commonalities is transition is a part of life. This experience has given me a bird's eye view on a variety of trends, economies, industry disruptors, and transitions that are big and small. It also brought me into contact with the thought leaders and decision makers you need to meet, the people who can make the difference that matters to you right now. Imagine knowing exactly what to do next and how to know it's time to make your big change. The insight track you're going to access during our future episodes is better than a crystal ball. It's the exact information you need to take that next step. Whether you're a new grad applying for your first professional job, someone looking to transition your work experience into a promotion, launching your own company, or maybe even starting to plan your retirement, you're in transition, and this series is for you. We all know transition can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. And it's even fun when you have VIP access to the future you want. Are you tired of the uncertainty of being passed up? We'll share with you the tools and skills that can take your dreams to the front of the line. So, if change is on your horizon, or maybe just the thought of change, you won't want to miss this discussion. It could be the exact edge you need to turn transition into an amazing opportunity. Mark James, thank you for being with me today. I'm very excited about having the opportunity to talk with you and learn a great deal based on your experience about networking, interviewing, resumes, and the whole process. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be here, Bob.
Mark, if you could, let's go back to early childhood. And as you were thinking about life, what did you want to be when you grew up?
You know, originally I always thought I'd like to be a pilot. I enjoyed going to the airport, pick people up, and I always thought it would be cool to be able to fly planes around the world. I don't know what happened to that dream. Eventually, I got myself into recruiting and realized that staffing and coaching and hiring and placing people really started to gel with my whole being and the way that I thought about business and the world. Everything changes as we get older. And I've said this in my classes that every student needs to prepare themselves to change jobs probably as many as 10 times in their career.
Well, let's talk about some of those transition moments. What have you experienced in terms of job transitions from that time when you were a child thinking you were going to be a pilot to where you're at today?
Yeah, I mean, if you've not been fired or terminated in a job throughout your career, well, then God bless you. You're a lucky person. But when things happen beyond your control, the first thing you're going to do is reach out to your friends and family and let them know that you lost a job. And then you get on the job boards and you make the mistake of posting your resume and hoping the phone's going to ring. And when I lost a job, I was instructed that I had to move to New Jersey in order to keep my job. And I just said, there's no way that I'm going to move to the East Coast. I don't want to be there. I don't know anybody there. And you have to make hard choices. And the companies today, they're notorious for moving people and not moving people and revolving door at the back end of the building. And you don't know it until it hits you. And it's a sad day. And if you're not prepared for it mentally, it's going to hurt you. It's going to take a while for you to recover. And maybe you don't know what to do. That's where I felt that I could certainly be a very valuable person with family and friends in the beginning when I was coaching people who are losing their jobs. They were coming to me and I was happy to help.
Mark, you've got some very interesting thoughts on networking. Why is networking so essential, and how do you coach your clients and others in terms of effective networking?
Yeah, I've always said that your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. Networking is the lifeblood of everyone's career. And if you ignore it and don't keep it nurtured, it'll never help you. The problem is people don't know when to start networking until after they've had a reason to. And usually that reason is because their company is changing, they're going to lose their job, or they've already been notified that their job is ending, and they haven't kept their network alive and kicking. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that anyone could make in their career, is to ignore the people that helped you along the way and the ones that you love and trust like a brother, sister, who don't hear from you until you call them and say you've lost your job. And it's very self-serving that you can't just send Christmas cards once a year. Here we are in December. You've got to reach out to people on a regular basis, especially the ones that are close to you, the ones you respect, the ones that are most connected, the ones that are most powerful, they have the best jobs. And those are influencers. And that's what networking is all about. It's not what you know, it's not who you know. That's the old paradigm. The new paradigm is it's who knows you and what they're saying about you. So you want to be talked up. You want to be networked. You want to be brought up in conversation as the person that someone needs to meet or know about. And the only way to do that is to educate your network on who and what and where and what you're doing on a regular basis.
But let's just say, Mark, that they didn't hear that advice from you before, right? And I lost my job. And I get that networking is important. Now, what do? Do you just throw that towel in?
Well, you got to have a story to tell. If you're not good at talking about yourself, you better fess up and say, look, I need to either hire a coach, or I need to read a book, or learn how to introduce myself in groups or one-on-one coffees at a Starbucks. How do I handle myself? What do I talk about? Is it about me? Is it make it about them? I believe that one of the most unused tools in the history of job search is the informational interview, where you literally sit down with someone who has a job and you play 20 questions and ask them how they got to where they're at in their career, and what would they do differently, and what kind of opportunities are going on within their world and their industry, their space. This is how you gather information. You're like a detective in a job search mystery. Your job is to uncover leads, tips, ideas, and referrals. And this is what you do in an informational interview. So you just got to be prepared to help people understand exactly what it is you're looking for and what that looks like. You can't say I'm industry agnostic. It makes me really upset when I hear people say that, because it doesn't help anybody. That's why you got to be specific on exactly what it is you're looking for, not try to do this broad stroke job search campaign that you're open to anything. Big mistake.
Yeah, I oftentimes have people saying, Bob, I'm a quick learner. I can do just about anything. And my response back to them is, I really don't have a job with a title, just about anything. Let's talk about that informational interview. How do you even get them set up? Go through a kind of a role play that you're calling me up and you want to have an informational interview. What do you say to me?
Well, first off, it's not going to be a cold call. It's going to be to someone you know or someone you've been referred to through a warm introduction, right? So you got to take that pressure off yourself that you got to go out and just find people that you don't know. That's not going to work. In fact, I recommend to my clients, stop doing cold calls and only do warm calls, warm introductions, and ask them, hey, I'm in transition. I'm between opportunities. I would love to buy you a cup of coffee or a tuna sandwich, and just pick your brain on how you got into the industry you're in, because it's fascinating to me. I've done my research, and I'd love to just learn a little bit about what's going on with you. And you can do this over the phone. You can do it in person. You can do it over a Zoom call, but you can't do it via text or email. It's not functional. That's not personal. It's impersonal. And you really do need to have that in-person effect when you're doing an informational interview. That's my best advice. But getting to that point is making a list of people who are influencers, who you're impressed with. And the first place to look, the best database in the history of job search is LinkedIn. Forget about Instagram and Facebook. Your job is to research people who are in the know. I would always classify them as the most powerful, the most connected, the most successful, typically people who are on the upswing of their career. and you target them accordingly based on your interest and whether there's a mutual interest based on the industry, the product, service, size of the business, you name it. That's a good way for you to increase your chances of getting into a company. I've read several times that for every 12 informational interviews that you conduct, the chance of you getting an offer goes up exponentially. So it's like a 12-to-1 ratio. Really, if you do it right, it could very well be that way for you.
Mark, you've often talked about the hidden job market. What is that, and how do you find those hidden jobs?
This is the million-dollar question, Bob. I love it when people say, I can't find a job. They're all hidden. There's nothing further from the truth. They are not hidden, and they're right in your cell phone. They're the contacts in your cell phone. If they weren't in your cell phone, they wouldn't be important. Out of, say, an average number of people that people know is about 247 people on average. Of the 247, you probably got maybe 10 to 12 that are the most successful, the most powerful, and they're close people that you know that are in your cell phone. And that's where the hidden job market is. It's the people that you have relationships with, that you know, or they might be 1 or 2 steps away from a formal introduction from someone you know well. And another place to look is your email contacts. You probably have hundreds of them. Narrow down the most valuable or the most important 10 to 15 people. You don't have to call them all, but you start researching them on LinkedIn and realize that, hey, this could be a really good person for me to tap into and learn about what's going on in their world and what kind of introductions they might be able to make to the target companies that you're going after. It goes back to that informational interview concept. It's so powerful and so valuable as a tool. You can read about it, you can Google it and learn all about different kinds of questions you can arm yourself with. I talk a lot about this in my book.
Mark, you mentioned earlier about LinkedIn, and I know that in the first chapter of your book, you talk about get LinkedIn or get left out. Why do you feel that LinkedIn is so important, and how do you coach people in terms of using it effective in their job search?
Well, I do say that LinkedIn is the 800-pound gorilla. And a key point is about 96% of all executive search firms are using LinkedIn exclusively as their database. So in order to get found on LinkedIn, you have to optimize your profile to the 100% level to become an all-star. They rank people based on how many things that you've entered into your profile. And you got to have a good banner headline that doesn't have titles and names of your companies that you've worked at. It's about who you are, your category of expertise, and what your deliverables are. That's the valuable space. That's the headline next to your headshot. And by the way, having a professional headshot is exceptionally important. If you don't, people might not take you seriously. You can't just be standing next to a surfboard down at the beach for your headshot. You need to have a good professional photographer take one, or have somebody that knows what they're doing with their cell phone so that you can really give the right impression. The other part of LinkedIn is being active. I have a wonderful formula that's in my book in chapter 1. It's called 5-3-1. Every day, 5 days a week, this is not easy to do, but you can start and push yourself to do this. Hit the like button 5 times on someone else's post or comment. 5 times a day. You just hit that little thumbs up like button. And then 3 times a day, you make a comment, not just nice post, but make a substantial comment based on what somebody posted. Think about it. Read the article, make a comment on what you believe about it, what you learned from it, what you agree about it. That's just 3 comments a day. And then the 1 time a day, you post something. Share an article from Inc. or Forbes or Harvard Business Review or a trade journal, a periodical that's in your space, and share the article, but make a comment so that people would want to know why you're posting it and what you believe about the article. So you do 5-3-1 every day, 5 days a week. Your awareness and your visibility will go up exponentially on LinkedIn, and you will be found.
Mark, what are some of the best tips that you have to help someone who's looking for their next great job opportunity to help them improve in their job interviewing skills?
Well, the job interview is the end game, right? So getting ready for the job interview and what leads to that. Getting first interviews, if you don't get a first interview, you're never going to get a job offer. But having a strategy, making a plan, it's one of the things that people don't do enough of in the beginning. They immediately start posting and uploading their resume to the internet job postings, which I believe is not a very productive use of your time. We know that lots of people are nodding their head going, yeah, it's not working for me. But having a plan, getting the plan set up so that you know by the time you get to the job interview, you're ready. So what's the plan include? It includes a list of target companies and industries that you're going after. Real companies, not just pharmaceutical or manufacturing or engineering, real names of companies, and then have a list of real people to network with and talk about your job search marketing plan, which is what this whole thing is. It's a marketing plan for you as to where you're going to go. It's a map, it's a chart for success. And using this plan, executing the plan, is what networking is about. You're marketing yourself. People say I should go into my job interview and sell myself. Wrong. I think that's the worst concept ever invented. You're not selling, you're telling. No one wants to be sold. Just remember this. If you market yourself in an interview, you're simply talking about your past comparable accomplishments, stories, anecdotes, things that you were proud of, that you accomplished in your previous assignments and jobs. So get used to this whole concept of marketing yourself in a job interview. And I've got 6 mindsets in my new book. We'll talk about that in a minute, but the 6 mindsets are written to help you relax and help you get into a mode of thinking, which we call a mindset, right? It's a pretend mindset that will help you relax and be your normal self. They want to see who you really are, and you want them to be very transparent and understand who they are. And it's not an interrogation, it's a conversation.
Mark, what if you have someone that says about your advice to come up with these 15 or 20 or whatever number of targeted companies, and they say, yeah, but that excludes hundreds of other companies that I might be able to work for, and I'm spending all my time on these 20 companies. Am I missing an opportunity? How do you respond to that?
I would always start with pick 3 industries that you're interested in, okay? I can tell you the 3 hottest industries on the planet right now are artificial intelligence, data analytics, and cybersecurity. Those are all technology-related industries, but healthcare is also really big up there. Anything regarding technology and software is very hot. They're growing. They're always looking for good people. But start with 3 industries, and then under each industry, plot out and research at least 15 to 20 companies. And those are not hard to find. Google is a wonderful place for job search when it comes to research, okay? And you can type in top 25 companies in cybersecurity within a 25-mile radius of your zip code. It'll come up. There's always a directory or always a listing of a local groups of companies that you can zero in on if you don't care where they're located, which is okay today because working from home and working virtually and remotely is very much in favor. So if you live in San Diego and you want to explore a company that's in Albany, New York, not a problem. But understanding the law of demand starts with you being able to get networked into the company rather than apply for the job online. But doing your homework, I always say it all starts with the plan and the strategy so that by the time you get to the interview, you're ready, you're comfortable. Maybe you're using 1 or 2 or 3 of the mindsets that I outline in my book.
Mark, you mentioned the working remotely. How do you communicate that? Is that something you put on your LinkedIn, on your resume? Do you wait until you're in the interview? How do you coach your clients in terms of communicating that?
Well, by now, most people are already up to speed on what it takes to work remotely. You've got to have a secure line. You got to have fast bandwidth. Your computer needs to be able to do a Zoom meeting without freezing up. You probably got lighting. You got things that you're ready to be able to do and be that person that can participate in a company and make contributions. So as we get going, I would say the one thing that COVID has really benefited everybody is because it opened up the door for companies to realize that working from home is not a bad thing. And then there's hybrid programs where it's 50-50 and maybe 1 day or 2 days a week you're in the office. But ideally, you want to highlight that you're virtually working remotely. You're capable of doing that. You can highlight that as a bullet on your LinkedIn profile. And then, of course, you're going to be talking about that when you're networking and asking questions during the interview as well, to determine whether or not companies are friendly to that and what the requirements are. It's simply a case of Q&A at this point.
Mark, you talk about in your book the job interview limbo, which I just love that. Can you describe that to us?
Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's right after an interview, or it's starting to wind down, and you got one more chance. They say, hey, Bob, do you have any more questions before we finish up? You never say, no, you've answered all my questions. Never, ever, ever say that. You always got one arrow left in the quiver, okay? And the question you ask is basically a setup. And it's, thank you, first of all, thank you for your time today. I learned a lot more about you and your company. My question is, do you have any concerns about my abilities to perform this job well? And just be quiet, wait for an answer. It's a setup. This is one of my favorite coaching tips. It's basically they can answer one of two ways. They can say, Mark, you're doing a really great job. We believe you could be a good contributor to our team. Let's move it to the next stage, right? Now you're leaving limbo because you're knowing where you're positioned and how well you just did in your interview. Or they might say, Mark, we do have a concern, and you maybe get one more chance to alleviate the concern and address it and make it not a problem. But if you walk out of that room, that meeting, or leave that Zoom screening over the internet without knowing exactly what's going to happen next, you will be in limbo. And that's why you always have to learn who's going to call who, what day and what time, who's following up with who. And if I don't hear from you at a certain number of days, I will reach out. You let them know who's going to reach out to follow up with me. There's too much ghosting going on. Everybody knows about ghosting. Candidates do it to companies, and companies do it to candidates. It's not a good thing. It's not fair to anyone. And you need to close the gap on understanding exactly what happens next so that you're not left in job interview limbo.
Mark, let's talk just a bit about those 6 mindsets that you mentioned earlier, interview mindsets. Can you describe them briefly for us? And what do I do with that information?
Absolutely. So the original was 5, and one of them is called the doctor-patient mindset. And this is one I love. It's in an interview, the job seeker, the candidate that's interviewing, pretends that he or she is the doctor and the hiring manager is the patient. And it's a beautiful mindset because you are the one that's going to help their problem go away if they hire you and expect you to deliver contributions, right? Do your job. Well, it's the same process when you're sick and you go to see a doctor. The doctor needs to know what's wrong, what kind of medication have you taken, what are your symptoms, what kind of history of illness in your family. And the doctor needs to ask these kinds of questions to understand how to provide a remedy, right? It's the same exact process in a job interview. Your job is to find out what needs to be done by the person who gets hired in the next 6 to 12 months. You're looking for deliverables or critical success factors or issues in problems or pain that the company is having, that they haven't been able to have somebody be able to do something so critically important. One of my other favorite questions in the interview is, what didn't the last person do in the assignment that you really needed them to accomplish? That's a great question, and it'll open up all kinds of great conversation. And you're taking notes. You're reading between the lines there and understanding. But that's one mindset. Another one is be a buyer, not a seller. We talked about not selling when you're in an interview. I always say be a human Switzerland. Be neutral when you're in the interview. You don't know if you want this job yet until you understand exactly what they need this person to do. I'm not saying play hard to get or act like you don't want the job or be aloof. I'm just saying ask questions like, what does this person need to do to be successful? You're not saying, what do I need to do should you hire me if that I need to do to be successful? What does this person need to do in order to be successful in your organization? You're giving the impression that you're not 100% sold on whether you want to work there yet, which kind of gives you a little bit of a law of attraction, a little bit of in demand. And they're going to want to enjoy talking to you about what's going on in their company. When they start telling you about their objectives and initiatives, they're selling. They want you to like them. That's a good thing. So that's just two of the mindsets. I didn't want to go into too deep because it would just take a lot longer on this one particular answer. But I believe that 4 remaining mindsets, one of them is act like a consultant, or the other one is pretend it's the first day on the job. While you're in the first interview, you pretend, hey, I already got this job. How would you act? How would you feel? You'd be up, roll up your sleeves. What do we got to do? What are the critical objectives? You can role play back and forth like the doctor and the patient. This is the way people get noticed. This is the way people get hired and they get liked. They think, I really like this person. They're asking good questions and they're really into the moment. That's part of the interview mindset.
Mark, any books or other resources that you would recommend someone that is going through the job transition?
I do. My books, of course, I've got 2 of them, Keys to the C-Suite and The Interview Mindset, which are now on Amazon doing really well. But Never Eat Alone by Chris Ferrazzi, one of my favorite books. Chris can thank me later. And that's all about getting in front of somebody, sitting down, networking over a meal, right? Never Eat Alone. Great book. Power Networking by Donna Fisher, one of my early favorites. She has like 60 different suggestions. Each page is a different idea on how to network effectively. That was published quite a while ago. Salary negotiation, age-old book called Getting to Yes. Can't remember the name of the author. All of these books are on Amazon. There's just a lot of good tips out there that you can pick up, and you just got to be naturally inquisitive.
Mark, if our listeners remember only 3 things from our discussion today, what are those 3 things that you want them to keep in mind?
Well, one of the biggest problems is get the heck off the job boards because it's the candy in the window. You can see it, you can't touch it. And it's a lure. So it gives you it's almost a false hope or a false feeling of production, like applying for a job. Well, I applied for 10 jobs this week and nobody called me. It's a tough thing for you to manage through that emotionally. So number 1, stop applying for jobs. And then the solution to that is work through people. People are the friends, not strangers, but people you know and trust and respect and love like a brother, sister. I've said that. And I believe that, you really have to focus on relationships. And they're the ones that are the hidden jobs are right there in your phone, like we talked about. Reach out, make sure you tell your story. It's the old Jerry Maguire movie, Help Me, Help You. You have to help your network be able to help you. They need to know what you're looking for. You can't say, I'm open to anything, like we just talked about. So educate your network. I don't know. Number 3, I would pay a lot of attention and get active on LinkedIn. I mean, if you're not daily, at least 30 minutes on LinkedIn every day, 5 days a week, you're missing an opportunity. There's a lot of things out there. And LinkedIn is all about jobs. It's all about careers. It's all about small businesses and recruiters. It's all tied into the big umbrella of career management, LinkedIn.
Many of my clients that I coach in career transitions are that type A personality. They can work the plan really well. And you're sharing that 5-3-1 idea is going to excite them and give them something to really shoot for. So I thank you so much for that. Mark, I've so enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for being a part of People in Transition. You gave my listeners so many actionable items and things to consider and to create their own personal transition plan. Thank you.
You're welcome, Bob. And anytime I can be of assistance, I'm easy to find. HireConsulting.com is my company. I'm on LinkedIn. Happy to connect. I'm not an open networker, but I do have about 5,000 LinkedIn contacts, and I try to know who they are before I connect with them, which is always a good tip. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We're working in unprecedented times as the world responds to the recent COVID-19 crisis. The fact is that even those who are not in transition understand it could be right around the corner, next month or a year from now. The purpose of these episodes are to give listeners support and the critical tools to adjust with the winds, wherever they come. I'll continue to introduce you to guests who have successfully, perhaps gracefully or without too many battle scars, survived their own obstacle courses and can share useful information on how to steady your ship or your world in this uncertainty. If today's message was helpful to you, please share it on social media. If you have any questions or podcast ideas for future conversations, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I appreciate your time you're investing in sharing these important conversations with me, my guests, and others who are going through life transition. Transitions between jobs, life stages, new entrepreneurial ventures, or whatever life brings. Change is constant. The more prepared you are for it, the better and easier the change will occur. Thank you again. This is your host, Bob Gerst. See you at our next episode of People in Transition.